Good evening, everyone. I have 6 o'clock on the dot, so I'm going to go ahead and call to order our meeting of the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee this evening. My name is Jamie Shoplin. I am the chair, for those who may not know me, and I have Tara Capps here, our co-chair. I'm going to share some chairperson comments. We're going to affirm our new members, and then we'll move into our typical order of business this evening. I want to welcome Andrea Thompson, who has just joined. So thank you, Andrea, for stepping up to serve as a parent member on CCAC. And we also have a new student, Mayeli Romero. So thank you, Mayeli. And we hear that you know Jake, and Jake is very beloved by CCAC, and we know that he is going to show you all the things. And Janelle is a fast follow, so she just hasn't been here as long. So we're very delighted to have 3 student members on CCAC, and we welcome you to the committee. I wanted to share a couple of updates since our last meeting, which I believe was in November. We had a meeting with the executive board. So we did get together as an executive board. That's the 4 officers that you all voted in. And then that also includes the chair of all of the subcommittees. So all of us got together earlier in January. We talked about some strategic alignment around where we feel we can take CCAC as we move ahead into the future. We also talked a little bit about how we might approach our annual retreat. So the annual retreat will be held at Hood College. We have an MOU with Hood College. It will be in the Tatum Arts Center. We are finalizing the exact room in that building, but that's where it will be held, and that will be on May 3rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So please do your very best to get there. We are going to have our special education leadership, members of special education leadership there to talk to us about deep dive on some of our recommendations and update on the audit and where we are with those and how we can move some of those recommendations forward in partnership with the board and whomever it makes sense. So please save that date. We'll get more information out to all the members around that. And thank you, Dr. Amy, for helping coordinate the space there. We also talked a little bit about bylaws revisions. So the executive board will convene on February 10th. So we'll get back together, and the 2 things that we'll be working through at our next executive board meeting will be around bylaw revisions. If you have bylaw revisions, please send them to myself, Tara, and Laura. If you haven't read our bylaws, please take the time to do that, because it does tell us how we conduct our business here as members of CCAC. And the other topic that will be in focus at our next executive board meeting will be around the budget. And I'm sure that our treasurer, Jen Wheat, will share some updates on that when we get to our budget subcommittee readout. I also want to acknowledge some observances that have been happening over the course of the month of January. So there was a recognition, which I'm sure the directors will also mention, National School Counseling Week proclamation was held. We also had National Birth Defects Month, that is January, World Braille Day, January 4th, International Day of Acceptance, January 20th, and January 24th, Mobius Syndrome Awareness Day. So those are some of our observances that are germane to the population of folks that we serve here. With that, I do want to go ahead and move into approval of our minutes way back when, in November 25th, when we had our last meeting. So if there are no amendments to the November 25th, 2024 minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve.
There were 2 edits to the notes, but I would move to approve.
Okay. Is it substantive to where we need to discuss them?
No.
Or were they more grammatical? Okay.
They were more informational.
Okay. Okay. So there is a motion to approve the minutes as seconded by Kara. We have 17 voting members present. Are there any in opposition? Okay, any abstentions? No abstentions, so 17.
I wasn't there.
Okay, so Patty will abstain. So 1 abstention and 16 yays. Okay. All right, so with that out of the way and our affirmation of our new members, I do also want to make sure everybody is aware that our new Board of Education liaison, Nancy Allen, is here this evening. So welcome, Nancy. We're delighted to have you. And we just pulled some information, I think, from the website. I'm not going to go through all of that, but just want to give you a warm welcome, and we look forward to having you.
Welcome,
partner with
Nancy.
us.
Welcome, Nancy. Oh, you who I should thank.
If there is anything that you'd like to share at this time with the committee, you're more than welcome to do that.
Now, I do have a spot here, right?
Yes, you
on
do.
the- So I'll save my comments for
Okay,
later. So,
sounds great.
yeah, thank you.
All right, and so this evening, we do have a special topic that we wanted to bring focus to as part of our agenda. And that topic is around co-teaching, but we had hoped Dr. Barbara Friedlander would be here this evening, but a personal commitment took her away, so she wasn't able to join us. But Tara and I did meet with her and got lots of great information, including recommendation on a co-teaching book, so I picked that up. It's called Elevating Co-Teaching with Universal Design. So we do have, on her behalf, Troy, Jen, or Katie, who are going to share some information around co-teaching and what we're doing in Frederick County for this topic in particular. As you may remember, Dr. Dyson talked about co-teaching when she came to see us in October, so we wanted to bring focus to that and help people understand a little bit more about what it is, what it isn't, the benefits of it, and how Frederick County is going about approaching co-teaching as a practice. So who would like to take to the floor there?
We'll get started and then pass it over to Katie. So many of you all know co-teaching is not necessarily a new thing in the education world. We've been doing co-teaching in Frederick County for many years. We, of course, have elevated in the past 2 years. One, our audit kind of helped reinforce that we want to make sure that we have a continuum of services and that our teachers do understand truly what co-teaching is. You'll see that we gave everyone a handout. That's the logo that Barbara actually created, because I love that, depending on what you've heard about co-teaching, sometimes you hear about there's 2 teachers. Well, it's a little bit more in-depth than that. And so one of the things that we did as a team across multiple stakeholders is create our own FCPS co-teaching definition. And so you'll see that in the handout, we define it as a partnership between 2 teachers that include shared planning, instruction, and assessment of students with and without disabilities. And so that is a model that fosters an inclusive classroom environment while all of our students, when appropriate, have access to grade level content and individualized support. You'll see that we also said teachers, because we actually have co-teaching happening even with our multilingual population. So there's some ML co-teaching going on, there's special education co-teaching going on. So typically you're always going to see a general education teacher, and then there's another provider that is either an ML teacher or a special education teacher providing this co-teaching instruction. And so one of the things that you quite often hear is, like, when I go into a classroom, I don't know the difference between who's the co-teacher and who's the general ed teacher and the special ed teacher. That's actually a myth that we're working on dispelling, so that our staff actually do know, like, there's a reason why there's a special ed teacher in that classroom, and there's a reason why there's a general education teacher in that classroom. So some of the things that we just want to share, why are we doing co-teaching? Well, one, the research is out there is vast and wide about how our students with IEPs need to have access to rigorous instruction. And rigorous instruction is going to happen in the general education setting because their general education peers are being exposed to that as well. And so we also ensures that targeted support can happen within that environment, so that you have 2 certificated teachers knowing what to do to help support those students. They're going to continue to get access to grade level standards. And then it also gives our teachers an opportunity. We often call it a marriage, but it also gives them an opportunity to learn to collaborate with one another and enhance their professional knowledge based on what each of the individual brings to the table regarding their skill set. So we'll talk about what the co-teaching models look like. Katie can discuss that.
So many of you might know that there's really more than 3 co-teaching models, but as a system, we've decided to focus on 3 main co-teaching models, which are listed on your handout. So station teaching, parallel teaching and team teaching, and that's because the engagement that happens within those three models is the highest amount of engagement that's gonna happen between an adult and the students. So if you look at those three models, station teaching is gonna be where students are going from group to group. Each of those groups is gonna be monitored by an adult, with one of them being some type of independent practice or application of the skill. Parallel teaching is where the class is gonna be divided into two groups. Teachers are going to have that same instructional goal for the students, but one might allow for differentiation or smaller groups to happen, and one might be a little bit larger, and the content delivery might be slightly different. And then you have the third one, which we were emphasizing, and that's team teaching. And that's where both teachers are sharing the responsibility for delivering that lesson simultaneously. And this is sometimes where that myth comes in that you can't tell which teacher is which. But really what's happening is they're seamlessly working together to provide that instruction, and that's where co-planning really comes into play, is in order to make any of these models effective, you have to do all three of those things: co-plan, co-teach, and co-assess. So in order to get everybody involved in this, we've really, as a district, started to focus on presenting to small groups, whether that's a group of central office staff members to be able to help support that delivery when it's in the school setting, or we did a consortium of 14 schools that went through something called Center for Transformative Teaching and Learning. It's also known as CTTL, where they had a morning learning about co-teaching, and then they spent 4 days in the CTTL, where they were gaining an understanding of co-teaching practices. From there, what then happened is, as a district, we used our central office resources to go and to monitor those classrooms and to provide feedback in order to try to find a model classroom that we could take and then use throughout the district as a sample of what could be done at each individual level. And I say each individual level because co-teaching is going to look different from elementary to middle to high school. The dynamics within each of those different levels is different, so then the structure of co-teaching has to look different within those. By the end of this year, what's going to be great is that all instructional leaders that have a role in supporting instruction in schools will have learned about co-teaching. So we do leadership presentations, and we have one coming up in February, as long as snow does not happen, or ice, or cold, or chill, or whatever. And what will happen is we will present to leaders about co-teaching and the foundation, and how do you make that work within your schedule to build your continuum within your building. But not just how do you make it work within your schedule, but which student is most appropriate for co-teaching and why? Why are you making those instructional decisions for students when you're looking at a student's data and their profile? In addition to all of those things, the team, Dr. Freelander, and then we also have Carly Parson in our office, who's through the AEP grant. They're providing co-teaching sessions and joining co-teaching sessions and co-planning sessions to be able to facilitate that conversation. And they've also done a book study, so those who are interested could sign up for the book study and participate in that, and that's been an amazing way. Right now, they have teachers within that book study. So hopefully what we're going to be able to do is share that commitment as a district to co-teaching, start building classrooms, building the expectations and the foundations with our district level leaders and building level leaders, so that over time that continuum will be a solid foundation for us.
Just to kind of layer on, co-teaching is not new in CPS. Co-teaching has been around for many years. So what we're trying to do is really create consistency, really establishing the definition, the different models, and then providing the professional learning to really strengthen it and have consistency across the district. And that's really what the work is happening now, is to really create that. And then, like he said, with regard to helping to determine what is the proper service delivery model for the student, to make sure that students are in co-teaching if that's the best place for them to be.
Open it up. Do you guys have any questions for us? Co-teaching is a lot. Planning is one of the biggest pieces that we struggle with for teachers, is common planning time, but what questions might you have for us? Yes. Laura?
February, you said you guys were doing a training, or did I misunderstand you? When, where, how, why? I know the whys, but when, please?
Great question. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head. I think it's in about 2 weeks, somewhere around the February 10th timeframe. But what we do is we have district level leadership meetings. It's called Inspired Blue, and that's the 11th. I was close. I don't have a photographic memory. So on that, Inspired Blue is what it's called, yeah. And we're able to build the capacity of our leaders. So every meeting we have there about once a quarter. We present a topic, and our topic for next time is going to be co-teaching. Our main goal for this year was to just focus on building our continuum in our school and the expectations of the district surrounding special education mindset and presuming competence, high-quality instruction.
And it's not open to the public? It is open.
It is a great collaboration opportunity, though, to
Sounds like it. Thank you.
Jen, you have a question?
I do. Would the station teaching be where if a special education teacher had to implement a push-in type of service into the classroom, is that where they would do that? Or is this complete, if you're co-teaching, is it going to be, you're going to get your push-in services separately?
I think that's probably going to depend on each student's schedule, because station teaching wouldn't necessarily happen every day, so it wouldn't be a guarantee where the push-in is probably a set time. I think that would have to be a conversation as to what that would look like for that child, depending on whatever objective or standard was being taught. Sometimes the models are used interchangeably within one lesson block, so it's
So do Kara?
So many questions. I think that a couple questions that just come to mind at first is how is this going to differ? And I realize it's not going to happen overnight, so I'm sure that's part of the process. But how is this going to differ from the co-teaching that we may have seen in the last few years? And kind of with that, how are you? Maybe it's part of this. How are we going to change that whole like culture mindset within the schools of embracing this? Because there's a lot of stereotypes and stigmatisms around co-teaching from teachers, from admins, from everyone else. So how are we going to, one, create that culture change, because I think it's going to be necessary to make it really work, and what is like the long-term vision of what this is going to look like different than what it looks like today? That's a lot.
to take some notes on your
ahead.
multi-step question.
I have more. Give me a second.
Started and then Katie. So one at Katie's point, on the 11th, we're actually meeting with administrators because it really does start with our principals and our assistant principals. And so we have a self-assessment for them to kind of do a reset on where they're at and they're building with co-teaching, because a lot of it is philosophy and understanding the definitions. And so that's where they're going to get to calibrate and say, this is where they're at. Because one of the things that we want to reset is that definition is like, if, like Jen said, like push in. Well, that still is a service, but if I'm only pushing in for 10 minutes and I'm only seeing certain students, that's actually not a co-teaching block. And so helping people understand that co-teaching really is those three components: teaching, assessing, and planning. If you're not able to really get to do that, then you're not necessarily meeting the definition of that. And then so helping them think about through that, and also help them understand, that especially design instruction can happen in so many different ways, and that it doesn't have to be necessarily just, it's in addition to potentially, a canned intervention. So some of that is where that day of working with the principals, I think, will help. And then going back to I think COVID obviously changed a lot of where people are at. We've been able to meet with national experts. We had Dr. Friend come with us. We had some other folks that are world-renowned with co-teaching, and they said that a lot of districts throughout the U.S. are having to recalibrate after COVID. So that was good, and I think starting there, and then each group getting to do some of the the book studies, that has helped them have conversations, and even working with our other folks in CNI, like with ML, they have their experiences with co-teaching. So those are a couple of things that we're doing to help recalibrate.
Providing resources as well for administrators, so it's not left up to individual administrators to develop the resources, to kind of put the structures and the process in place, to provide them with resources to enable them to be able to utilize those as they strengthen the co-teaching partnership. As previously, it was kind of up to individual teams to kind of figure that out, whereas trying to provide those resources to help them to really set that co-teaching marriage, as Dr. Friend will use, as really a strong partnership as they move into the co-teaching model together.
So is that what Barbara's doing, is creating kind of this curriculum for each of, and I think you're saying administrators, so the principals, it's part of that leadership. I didn't catch that first. So is she creating some of these curriculums and these workshops or whatever
Resources,
it is?
yeah.
Resources.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounded like when Tara and I met with her, it's a more systemic approach to, and also the way that it sounds like everybody's going about it is in a way to make the change stick. So creating things that, you were even talking about what kinds of questions might you ask if you were hiring or screening, and providing some guidance on what kinds of questions to ask to make sure that we're getting educators in who understand the definition of co-teaching and how Frederick County's defining it. So it really does seem like a holistic sort of approach so maybe that's a little bit different than what you've experienced in the past.
You know, it's good, and some of the feedback we've had in the past are, you know, just as you're working on that culture shift and as she's trying to create these resources, some of the concerns that have come to us in the past were always around, you know, how do you truly make that time for planning? Because otherwise, you just, you know, one of them's typically, you know, referring to the other, and that really shouldn't be how they should be teaching. They really should almost look seamless. The administrator should know there's two in there and who specializes in what, but from a student perspective, they don't need to know why that teacher's in here. They're just helping do the things, right? And then the other piece is, you know, that teacher, at least historically, is always been the first person to get pulled. If there was someone that was not available that day, they got pulled to cover testing. They got pulled to cover an absence. So, you know, just helping with the culture of the mindset of the admins to understand that these aren't the people you pull first just because you have an absence. I get it. I know there's challenges every time, but if they're not there consistently, then it's not going to, you know, make that much change. So.
Part of the time, though, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, and the expectations. What are we looking for when we say co-plan? It's not that you just show up, and you show up prepared to talk. And you really need to use that time block strategically in order to make it effective. And then we're also strategically doing this in February because master scheduling is right around the corner. And in order to set this up for success, it needs to be built into the master schedule. Put together guardrails for admin. So, you know, what is truly a reasonable expectation for a co-teacher? You can't have them teaching 4 different subject domains. That's not reasonable. Where's the location of the classrooms when you're placing them within the different classes? So in addition to all the things that we've talked about, we are trying to be really forward thinking about our planning and when are we giving that information to administrators so that they can take those proactive steps, looking more towards next year. Of course, we're going to continue to work with the schools that we've started this with this year, but the goal is really to plan forward. Who's willing to take this journey, and you know, if you are, you need to commit. And these are the commitments that we can make.
So that, are you planning on having like the pilot schools? I think you said that a little bit, but what schools are on the list to like pilot this out and test it?
So right now in the CTTL group, there are 14 schools, and most of them are in the Catoctin feeder. There are some outliers like Crestwood Middle School, but the majority of them are in your Catoctin feeder. And what we know about our Catoctin feeder is that they do a lot of feeder work together, so it's been nice for them to be able to kind of cross-articulate about what they're doing in their buildings, even though it might look different amongst levels.
Let's just do a feeder-based thing. That way you're going, you know, it starts becoming more consistent all the way through.
It's really hard to take all the schools and say, here we go.
How many is it now? 90 some? What is it? Okay. That's great.
Rowan, did you have a question?
Sorry.
It was touched on a little bit here, but my question is there a method established, or will there be a method established to collect teacher feedback? So we understand, you know, from the ground, kind of on the ground what's happening.
So we do have surveys that we administer to our teachers. We are actually working on a new one that we want to use to kind of evaluate our work with the audit and making sure that we have like our KPIs that we kind of established from the audit. And so these are things that we can incorporate into our survey so that we're collecting that feedback from our special education teachers. We also have quarterly meetings with we have a special education work group with our SCTA partners, and they have representatives from all 3 levels. And so that gives us a really good pulse check, and they're willing to talk to their colleagues to kind of bring information forward. So we have a couple different venues that I feel like we can utilize to gather feedback from our teachers to ensure that they are meeting their needs.
Schools that are in the CTTL partnership, there's coaching, you know, like they'll go watch a lesson within a classroom and then they'll provide on-site coaching to them. So part of that is like what's working well, what did you take from what we were able to do professionally as professional development so that they can modify not only what we're doing as a district, but then what's happening within that classroom to be tailored to them.
Yeah, and I could see that, you know, training opportunities when you're in the training environment would open up opportunities to sharing. The other question I had was, you know, measurements, I guess, in place to, you know, determine the effectiveness of this model. Apparently it's been used. This is new to me. This is new information to me. So, I mean, I don't know if there are established measurements that we could apply to determine whether or not this is really working for the students. At what point, you go back, you revisit an IEP, right? Or 504 to determine if this is really working for the student. So are there those, I guess, tools in place to understand that?
There's continual data progress monitoring that happens. I think, at the school level, we're looking at individual students and what is their service delivery model, and are they making progress? And if they are, then could we put them in a less restrictive continuum, and maybe they don't need as much service and support? And if they're not, maybe we need to move through that continuum and provide more support and services. And that's a lot of the conversations we've been having with our district level leaders, is what questions do you ask as you're setting up the schedule, and then also as you're leading your building? How are you looking at your data during data teamings and making those decisions? And then as a district, we would want to target specific classrooms where we know that co-teaching is happening, and talk about why we may or may not see variability within that data.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Joanna?
Question. So, is this something that, like, they will inform parents, like, this is the main teacher, and then do they announce, like, these are your, like, both of the teachers equally? Or is it like, this is the teacher, this is the assistant? Like, how is this announced? Because I've had, like, a few teachers changes in this year for my child, and I noticed that sometimes there was somebody that was already in the room, but when the one teacher's not there, then she becomes the teacher. So I'm just trying to figure out how that's said. And then also, is there any empirical data to express the benefits of this? Because I'm sure that it's been happening for a while, but it would benefit everyone, especially if you're doing cultural change, to anyone to read the benefits, as you were saying, to say, like, what are the benefits for the students, of course, primarily, and then, how is this really benefiting the students? Because if it is, then I would love to learn more about it and maybe go to one of these conferences. But yes, is there any empirical data I can, read about more to learn, like, what are the successes of these classes?
There's a lot of research on co-teaching that's out, various different resources of books, articles, those types of things. Communication, we encourage that the teachers communicate together. Often you'll see the teachers' names on the classroom together. So that is a school-wide solution, but that's something that we definitely tell them to do, to ensure that that communication gets signed by both teachers, those kinds of things. Again, it's probably level specific. The secondary might look a little bit different, depending on where you are within that.
And then also, I'm not familiar with this information, but you guys might know more than me. I know that there was, some challenges with, like, teachers all over the United States at one point with hiring teachers. So is this like doubling the teachers, or is it being like 2 teachers in a classroom that was already, like, how are we making that adjustment overall? Because, teachers are very valuable, and I just want to make sure, like, how is this benefiting the teachers too in this type of change?
Probably leads into one of the challenges, or challenges. Is that kind of what you're getting
That's what
at?
I was just curious about.
Anything you want to share around that?
The one thing I would reiterate is what Dr. Bigman already said. So middle school and high school has been doing co-teaching for years. This is not new. It's more of a recalibration on making sure, like, what we're saying, that you're actually seeing the co-planning and the co-assessing occur. But that actually is typically the preferred model that you'll see more at middle school and high school here in Frederick County, is co-teaching. So it hasn't been a change, and then of course year over year we look at staffing, and that's how we continue to add special educators that can help out with co-teaching, and then we help principals with their master scheduling.
Patty and Tara.
I just want to make sure that 2 points are stressed with all the teaching. I'm retired from Frederick County as a special ed teacher. but I was doing co-teaching 10, 15 years ago. And in certain classrooms, it is the best thing. And we did all of what you're talking about in here, but you have to have the buy-in of the administrators so that they allow the co-planning and they don't pull special ed teachers when they need somebody in the cafeteria at lunchtime. That's one thing. And the other one is the general ed teachers' acceptance of special ed teachers coming into the, or the assistants, whoever it is, but because it can be very territorial. And because of that, you know, then the one thing that I used to say at the very beginning of the year, even though I taught in the same school for 17 years, the first week of school before the kids came, I would always say, I'm here to be your co-teacher. I'm not here to sit on the back sink and wait for you to decide to have me do something. And so that's just really important. That can be a really big thing, is that whole territorial thing. But if you're training all of them, it could work out great. I'm doing it now in private schools, so it does work.
I had something I wanted to stress because I don't know if it was clear to everyone, and then I have a question. So when the co-teaching model is done, it's a general educator with a special educator or a general educator with a multi-language educator. So you're not looking at two general ed teachers together. It's two different pools of teachers, which I think might be informative for Joanna. So like if Jamie was a general instructor in language arts and I was a special educator, we co-teach together. Or if I was a multi-language educator. But generally, two gen ed teachers aren't co-teaching together in this model. The model is to have the special educator in the room to create a more inclusive classroom and to allow for different types of instruction to occur concurrently. Is that a good way to explain it?
Two adults.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see literacy specialists.
Yeah, that's,
Somebody with a
they have a special.
discrete skill that they're able to then apply in that classroom. So
Yeah.
that's why we kind of just say adults.
Is that helpful?
That's very helpful,
Yeah.
so that I can see that being very beneficial to whoever has
Well, and
the
I think
need in
it's
the class.
it's great for the kids that don't have an IEP too. So they're getting exposure to other teachers they may not, and they may receive instruction that they don't even realize that they're learning in different ways, and it helps develop their techniques of exploring and learning and growing. But my question was, if you have a child with an IEP, what are the ways that this should be disclosed to you in terms of they're in co-taught classrooms? Is it something that when you're in an IEP meeting, you could ask or advocate to have in the IEP as an accommodation to prioritize them for a co-taught classrooms for their core subjects? Or is it just something that will happen and you'll find out?
Is this part of the continuum? You would see that in your services section of the IEP. Because it's a service, so it would be an inside general education classroom setting. Now, there could also be push-in, and that's different because that's not the entire instructional block. So I think you would want to ask some of those questions as they were navigating the services that your student was receiving.
Perfect. And if you had, for examples and grades and data to show this is a known co-taught core subject and look how well they're doing, and a similar core subject that's not co-taught, look how poorly they're doing, to advocate for your child to be in more co-taught classrooms, would that be appropriate as a parent to bring to show to the team at the meeting?
I'm always going to have you advocate your voice
Yeah.
for your child.
No, you are. But would that be something that those of us that are parents or even teachers might look at ways of bringing in ideas for improving the IEP for a student if they're seeing success in one classroom and not in the other?
I would just want to dive into it more, like,
Oh, yeah.
what is the cause of why they're performing better in that subject, and is their disability really impacting them in the other subject that you're referencing, and is that really a required service? So we're providing that service based upon the disability, so I would just want to make sure that I'm connecting it back to the needs of your child and not just a personality trait of the teacher or something of that nature. There's so many factors that could play into that.
Sure. I just know I didn't find out my kid was co-taught until he'd been co-taught for several years in core subjects. So I figured it's something people should know to ask about.
I see Kara has a question. Anyone else have a question before we, okay, Laura?
You said book study. You're providing a book study. Can I hear more about that?
It's the one that's written, the Elevating Co-Teaching, and it started in October with collaboration with Dr. Elizabeth Stein, who is one of the leading experts, so.
I think I'm in the book study if I can.
Yeah, please.
So we meet, there's asynchronous weeks and synchronous weeks where we meet like via Google Meet or whatever. There's sections of the book that we go through and they delineate all the different types of co-teaching. And then we have assignments where we collaborate with a co-teacher in our building, or if we're not currently co-teaching, someone who we could potentially co-teach with. So I'm a special ed teacher, so I have a 3rd grade classroom teacher who I have done some of this conversation work with. And we do, similar to what you were saying about administrators, like self-reflect on what does my co-teaching look like right now, or what is my understanding or feeling about co-teaching right now, and then sort of how does that change through the book study. And I would just plug to buy the book, read the book, get it at the library, and just any staff who are here, if there's another opportunity to do the book study, I would highly recommend it. Liz Stein came on and did part of one of our live sessions with us, and just also emphasizing this UDL, like the things that we're doing for some of our students with IEPs or some of our ML students in the classroom are beneficial for everybody. And so it really, being able to co-teach just gives access to so many more students than just those students with those specific needs.
And then we had Kara.
And that was really my last comment. Like, I know I asked a lot of questions in the beginning, but we've been talking about this, just not this year, but for years, and you guys have been continuing to work on that, which we appreciate. And my comment is, a lot of times, at least in the past years of CCAP, we've spent so much time talking about our especially just, what can I say, the Learning for Life.
Specialized program.
Thank you. Love brains tonight. Our specialized programs, which are super near and dear to my heart, but you know, the majority of our students that are on IEPs are in the general ed classrooms, and the more we can get this philosophy out there, and that co-teaching is not job sharing. I think it was a good point that you brought out. It's not a job share. It is 2 different types of specializations. But the more we can do that, the more of those general ed students we are able to reach and even identify others earlier. There's lots of benefits of having that specialization in the classroom. So this is really exciting.
Snaps. Jen.
So the amount of teachers that co-teach would just depend on who volunteers. So some school may have a lot of volunteers that want to co-teach and some may not, or how are you structuring? Because it sounds like they have to commit, right? So are you asking them to commit, or are they saying, yes, I would like to commit?
School by school, like in your secondary schools, you're really not being asked to commit because a lot of our models are co-teaching models at the secondary level based upon the core contents and the graduation standards. In elementary, you'll see more of a flexible model of, you know, if you find 2 people who are getting along and have a good relationship, then you might encourage that. You know, we have a group of students in 4th grade and their data is showing this, let's try co-teaching and put our resources there. That's why we're encouraging our staff right now to look at master schedules and students' data to start making some of those decisions now, so that by the time August comes around and those students set foot through our door, we're prepared for them. And then if there need to be IEP conversations about change of service delivery, all of those things can happen in the spring, so that we're ready to start the year off in a
It really just depends by the school.
And elementary right now has more flexibility and choice than secondary.
Any final questions? Lots of great questions. Thank you so much for the engagement this evening. So a couple of resources, and you know, if Dr. Friedlander were here, so Elizabeth Stein is one of the thought leaders, and we have our very own thought leader in Dr. Friedlander, and so I hope that we can continue to leverage her thought leadership and expertise as we move through this journey. But she did share a couple of suggestions if we want to know more. So Elevating Co-Teaching, you can get this out on Amazon if you'd like, or wherever you find your books. And then She is an author of Powerful Writing for All, so that's another resource, not specific to co-teaching, I don't think, but sort of in the space, from what I understand. I might be totally wrong on that, so correct me if I am. But the other thing that she mentioned is that she is going to be presenting some of her research at the Council for Exceptional Children, which is an international conference that is happening in Baltimore. That's coming up in March. There is a parent registration option that is a little bit less impactful financially, but it sounds like a really great opportunity if you want to connect with other thought leaders around this and learn the latest and greatest. The other thing that was really impressive about Dr. Freelander was just the work that Frederick County is doing really isn't happening in other counties in Maryland, and she serves on, I think it's the board for Maryland, University of Maryland, and so people are reaching out to her to see what Frederick County is doing in this space, and so she's sharing data back to add to the thought leadership around this for even beyond Frederick County. So I think we're very lucky to have her guiding us around this topic. So with that, we'll close out our special topic for this evening and we'll move into the rest of our agenda. So we do have Member Allen here to share some comments from the Board of Education.
Hi, thank you guys. I was excited I was offered the opportunity to sit as liaison for this committee, and I gladly accepted. I think it's a great committee, and you guys do great work. So I don't have a whole lot to share tonight. I know that most of you are aware that we're in the process of reviewing the budget, and of course, on Wednesday evening, there'll be a public hearing at Tuscarora High School at 6 p.m., and that is for the public to come and provide their comments around the budget. What I do understand, and though I don't want this to be conveyed as a promise, but there seems to reflect, the board has reflected the intention of funding special ed at the level as it's been proposed by the superintendent. So, and what you see is that there has not been a lot of change from the previous year. So the budget is moving from 25 to 26 is very similar, with some bump ups, which we hope, I think, will be centered around staffing for special education department. There's information that's still going to come from the county and the state that may shift some of our decisions in the future, but I think that our commitment, I speak for myself, and I think what has been expressed by other board members, that we don't look to special education to do any reductions. So we understand the importance of the funding level for this department and to be meeting the needs of the students that fall under this department. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Board Member Allen? We appreciate it. Go ahead.
I wasn't here last year, so budget, he said a little bit more, so did you get that information?
Yeah, I have it with me. It's $2,900,000.
It's all online.
Yeah, it is.
CPS
online.
website, and then you go to the budget tab, a plethora of information. It also has timelines, so it walks you through the timeline for the budget. And you can also go as deep as you want. Like, it actually goes line by line. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's like 70-some pages. Nancy, you might be able to correct me.
73.
73, I thought. It actually goes line by line for everything within the budget. And there was actually, January 15th, there was a full-day budget session, and it was recorded. So you can actually hear each cabinet member go up and speak to all of the budget and then answer the questions from the board. So there's a plethora of information out there about budget, and you can certainly dive in as much as you want.
Yes, and Laura has collected all of that information for us, and it is out in our Google Drive. We do have the budget detail, I think it's somewhere around page 17, 18, where it gets to special education line item information. So we can send that back out. I think it was maybe shared in our chat, but we can certainly send it around email too. So all of that is down there. There is also a really great video by Dr. Dyson that talks about continuum of services and support for the remote virtual school. So those are things that are out there, as Dr. Pingman said, that are very readily available. And it's a very nice little, gives you the timing of what's happening when, and with the Board of Education, with the county executive, and the whole process. So,
Yeah. So it's 2.8.
And I can only-
Is a little bit of, it's the bump up from last year.
Okay. And then those areas will have the details of how it was separated.
yeah, so it'll,
Per cost center.
I don't know if you're
You
covering
know,
this in
so
director
for every
comments at
line
all,
item.
the budgeting piece of it or not tonight, but, yeah, okay. Any other questions? Great. So we will move on to director comments, Troy and Katie.
I'm going to start tonight with director comments and a little bit about staffing for next year as we move into next year. When we staff our schools, we are looking to get 5 additional special education positions next year. And when we allocate those positions, we look at a caseload ratio, so trying to keep elementary between 10 to 15 and secondary between 15 to 20. So that's in regards to allocations, that's how we're looking to allocate special education case managers for those students who are accessing supports within comprehensive schools. The other thing I just wanted to highlight, because Troy's going to talk a little bit about some possible program expansion, is we are recently updated the parent inclusionary guidebook. So we had put out an inclusionary guidebook for our staff and FCPS personnel, and now we have a counterpart to that, which is our parent inclusionary guidebook. It can be found on the FCPS website under Parent Resources, Special Education. And if you go into actually tonight's agenda, I did link it there, so there was a direct link, because sometimes it gets confusing because there are so many clicks from the FCPS website. So it is linked there on tonight's presentation. But what you'll see in there is just some resources to inform parents of the continuum of services that FCPS provides, from consultation to direct service and push-in within the classroom, to co-teaching, all the way to pull-out, and then our specialized programs that are offered. So any feedback on that is always welcome. It's also going to be presented at an upcoming board meeting, so just trying to spread the message and work with our communications department to get that information out into the hands of parents as an additional resource.
Another thing to add for the budget enhancements that we did put forward for our growth is we do continue to have a great need for our expressions programs. So we do have that in the requested superintendent budget for 3 more expressions classrooms at the elementary level, as well as a Learning for Life classroom. Continue to have some increases there at elementary. Some of the other costs are related to just inflationary. Public costs continue to rise, some other things, so that is included in that 2 point.
Two questions. Did you say 5 additional special education teachers, and that's like total across the county? Is that what you're saying?
For our special education teachers that are supporting students in comprehensive schools and specialized programs.
Okay. And then for the expressions programs, are any of those going to be expressions? Are they going to be expressions programs as the current model is? Like,
Students accessing a certificate of completion.
yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Karen.
I saw the Thurmont Middle School RISE program opened. You know, in the beginning of the year, you were having trouble finding a teacher, so sorry if I missed that. Prior to that, that's good news. So it is open in Thurmont now?
No, there's still a vacancy, but
Vacancy. But you're planning on getting there. We hope to get it there. And then I did have someone come to me recently asking, or concerned that the elementary school RISE program was dissolving, but I said that I would bring that up. I didn't know if it was dissolving or if it's what your plan has been all along, is to bring it in-house, or is that the plan? Is that what we're looking at for that? I'd love to learn more about that, not necessarily today, but what that's going to look like, how it'll compare to the model with the program with Shepherd Pratt, and what the timeline is for that.
So I can share a really quick update. So we have shared with CCAC in the past. We know we've opened up RISE this year. We already have some students at our elementary program. And then parents were notified for any student that does attend the Shepherd Pratt RISE program that this will be the last year that we have that co-partnership. And so they are having independent IEP team decisions about where they're going next, and that could be that some of them are doing well, they're going back to their home school. Some may be transitioning to the new FCPS Whittier classroom. Some may need a non-public placement, and then there's some that actually are transitioning on to middle school, so they may attend Thurmont or whatever is appropriate. But there's 9 students that attend that program right now, so decisions are being made right now where they will be going, and we're having case-by-case decision.
Mr. Keller's actually going to be presenting the new CPS program to the Board of Education. Do you have the date of that?
I think sometime in March.
We try to plan out different board presentations because we know there are things that people would be interested in. So Mr. Keller's already planned to provide more of a comprehensive update on the RISE program.
Can I just follow up? Is it still going to be K through 5? The in-house RISE program?
It will be. Right now, this year, they're just 3rd through 5th graders. The Whittier classroom, but yes, over time, as we add more classrooms, we will have it will be a K through 8 model, so we have middle school and elementary classes.
That's where I was heading. Are you increasing the grades of things?
Yeah, and we are gonna evaluate how our middle school program does to see if we would like to even expand it into high school. You know, just with the notion that our students have to earn a high school diploma, we want to make sure that they're getting access to rigorous classrooms. So that is a conversation that we're having as well, based on how our middle schoolers do.
Will the vision always be to stay at Hillcrest with that?
So right now, it's not at Hillcrest. The FCPS classroom is at Whittier, and really over time and needs, we plan to expand multiple sites.
Middle school classes. One more resource to just draw your attention to is Dr. Bigman realigned the CCAC recommendations to the PCG and the Blue Ribbon Task Force, so that's another that's on our director's agenda for this evening.
Anything else?
Any questions for us?
Okay, so we will move to our Partner for Success members, Grace and Issa. Anything to share this evening?
Yes. Well, first I wanted to introduce Grace, and she is my new partner in crime. She got hired December 1st, but it's been a while since we met, so this is the first time everybody meeting her. And we have definitely gone into planning mode. So February, the end of February is a little busy, so first, February 18th at 6, we are partnering again with Pathfinders for Autism to do another Autism 101 workshop. Neil does a great job giving this. He tells his own story with his own son, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for friends, for families, for individuals who want to learn more. It is a wonderful opportunity. And then February 21st, we finally get to have our open house of our Parent Resource Center at Success Building, Lincoln A. It is from 1 to 4 p.m., so that is an early dismissal day. We thought it would be a good opportunity for families to come by with the kids. So we are going to have Frederick Theatrics there to have activities going on for them. And we're going to do raffles. And then vendors that are participating are the ARC, and then you guys, CCAC will be there, Parents Place in Maryland will be there, Infants and Toddlers, Little Leaves Behavioral Health, City Youth Matrix, and then a representative of FCPS will be there as well. And the hope is just for parents to come in through the time frame whenever to check out the space, receive the resources and ask any questions that they may have, and then continue that exposure of what we do and share with everybody. So keep that on your calendar and share with everybody, because we would love everyone to come and check it out. February 27th, we have a finance workshop. So Grace has a personal connection with a finance group that is going to kind of give a workshop on with our families to kind of help with that finance barrier that sometimes happens when we have children with higher needs, right? And kind of balancing that. And so they're going to come in and kind of go through budgeting and how to help budget and things like that. And then another exciting project, we are working with Katie and with Jake. We are wanting to do a student panel. And we are going to do this at Mount Airy Bowling. Our goal is to bring in our teenagers, and hopefully they might be more enticed to come bowl and sit at a student panel. But the goal is to bowl and then have a 15-minute panel and then bowl again. And our panel is going to consist of Jake and Janelle, and then Katie. We also want a special educator, and then we are looking for a college speaker to come in and give that post-graduation perspective, continuing on. And the idea is to have them come, ask questions, whatever that may look like. We will have some guided questions, because sometimes we know it can end up being crickets, and hopefully that'll get that flowing. So that is our project for that as well, to get more students like Jake and Janelle and Maeli to be involved. So that is, and then that will be March 28th, sorry. And that'll be the day before CCAC Fair. And then we'll be also helping with the resource fair and doing whatever it is that we need to help with that. So those are our updates for right now. And we continue to answer parents that are calling in and helping them with the resources. We are on local care teams, so those help when they come in, and any other families that continue to call. So we are here to help. Any questions about anything? Yes, Jake?
Student panel wise, where are we in terms of like the college person or the special educator? Because if you guys need me to reach out to people, I have connections.
Well, we did reach out to someone at FCC, and we are waiting to hear back from them. Special educator, we wanted suggestions. We can ask a plethora of people, but if you had anyone in specific that you would love to see up there, definitely send them our way and we can invite them. Or if you have someone in the college area that you think would be good too, send them our way.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Just that we have a member who is at Hood, so it might be something.
More college students,
Yeah.
a whole Rolodex full.
We will definitely reach out for that.
This is just our kickoff, so
Yes.
as we've met and talked about it, we would love to grow this initiative, and we spend a lot of time talking about where do we host this to make people feel comfortable. We don't want to just do it at one school, because then that's not inclusive for the district. So, over time, I think our desire is to make this more infused into each school's culture. But for right now, we needed a starting point, and we needed a way to get engagement and buy-in. And saying, hey, come hang out at a panel was not enough engagement and buy-in for that age group. So then we thought about, what could we do? So if anybody has ideas, suggestions, it really is just a start-off event in hopes that we can continue to make that happen over time.
What time is it on the 28th?
So we did talk to them, and I know on a Friday night it gets busy later in the evening, and I know that's, so they said the best time was probably going to be between 2 and 4, and that is a teacher work day, so students are out for the day. But I think that we are going to do it between 2 and 4. So hopefully it's not a terrible time. But they did let us know, they're like, 4 to 6 is a little hard for us, so.
And Issa loves me because I was like, we have to use that day. It's right before the resource fair and kids are off. So if you see her at the resource fair, give her extra kindness because I had to give her a little encouragement.
It'll be great. We'll love it. Love staying busy.
All right, so thank you, Issa, and welcome, Grace. We're delighted to have you. So it's not up here, but it should have been up here, an update from Brooke Schmidt regarding the happenings with CSAC.
Yeah, so CSAC actually follows a little bit opposite. We did not meet in November, we did meet in December. My main goal that I'm working to get everybody else on board with is to have more transparency and communication happening from each of the CCACs across our state coming up to the state level. And for there to be two-way communication rather than just a lot of one-way communication coming down from MSDE being presented to us. So part of that, and some of you guys probably seen it because you guys sent it out, right? The CCAC survey CSAC survey that came out was something that myself and Joe, who's my co-chair, created to try to get feedback on what all the CCACs need and what each of the counties need that we can try to support. So we actually just reviewed that data last week, and a lot of what came in was that a lot of the CCACs actually are looking for support with sample bylaws, sample what to do with your budget. I don't think we have that problem here. So I actually may lean on Jamie. Jamie came to that meeting and gave some good feedback. I actually benefit of being here in Frederick County is that I'm hoping we can use part of what we're doing here at our CCAC to take up to model for some other CCACs across the state. So I think it'll be a slow moving process. Our state CSAC works a little bit differently than we operate here on the county, and it's a learning curve I think for all of us involved. There's only 2 of us. There's not 4 like we have on the board, and MSD is busy, so trying to coordinate planning schedules has been interesting. But our December meeting was over Blueprint, so I know a lot of people have, Laura's been great, you guys have been saying out information for the special education work group. We presented on that at CSAC. December, January, I will send out, I was just looking, I just got the link for the meeting and the agenda is still not up on the website, but I will forward the link out to Jamie if you want to push it out. And they are public meetings, so anybody's welcome to listen in. This Wednesday, it'll be from 10 to noon, which I know is also not convenient that we're holding meetings in the middle of the workday. But they're going to be presenting on SPP and APR, which is the annual performance report, so they will be presenting what our state level indicator data is, targets that have been met, targets that have not been met, and then they will be looking for feedback from members on how to adjust targets moving forward for next year. So it'll be a good meeting to be at if you're not familiar with that. It's a good place to give some feedback. The meeting itself, only members can give feedback. That being said, you guys have my email. Jamie has my email. Send it up and it'll get to me and I'll make sure it gets to the right people. And then our big plan moving forward, I don't have confirmed yet, but one of the last 2 meetings of the year will be a joint meeting where all CCAC members will be invited to come to the CSAC for joint collaboration. The goal that hasn't been happening for a while is what we're doing a beautiful job modeling here in Frederick County of giving Board of Ed recommendations and giving recommendations back is not happening at state level. So part of our goal is to then get all of the counties to come give concerns or what's working well and what's not working well at each county level, so we can then see at a state level what is systemic problems that we need to address at a state level and what are things that are working really well in some places that we can then take and share with other counties to improve. So The first step of that was that survey to get feedback, and the second step will be doing a joint meeting, kind of a brainstorming session on what are our main areas of recommendation that each county can share with us and that we can then work moving forward as a state. So if anybody ever has any questions, send them to Jamie.
Yeah, some of the things that we heard on the last meeting was around membership continuity and how do we keep members, how do we orient them. It's a complex landscape to navigate and to try to understand, as we all have been through drinking from a fire hose, and some of us are doing that right now, Andrea and Maeli. So there was a lot of feedback around that. So what I've observed in my time here locally was echoed throughout CCAC members from around the state. So I'm super excited that you're trying to look at that more holistically and systemically to see how CCACs can be better supported. Awesome. Anything else? Questions? Okay.
Nancy.
Are those meetings recorded?
No.
Okay.
The agenda is posted on the website, and the meetings are scheduled out for the whole year, and those are posted, but they're not recorded.
But you could join them virtually?
Yeah, they're held virtually. They're on a Google Meet.
All right, so we will move now into our subcommittee reports. So if we could hear from Jen Wheat, our treasurer, for the subcommittee.
Okay, so for our budget, which is a $2,500 grant from the state, we had to submit our final requests for this budget year. So we did have to make some adjustments from the last time we met because the building service personnel that are used on the resource fair are 8 hours and not 6, so we had to move the money around. So we did have to take some money out of our expert speaker category to move that in there to cover that. We did get approval. Everything we asked for, we have to have approval from MSDE. If you want to buy something, it has to go through many chain of commands. So we did get approval for a couple of the items that were requested from, I guess, Communications Committee, Membership Committee, and the chair asked for a couple of things. So we are down to the final, which would be the salary for the custodial services is $480. The contracted services would be a total of $371, which would be the pull-down poster that you requested, and the Mighty posters, which I believe Communications requested. Yes? Okay. Contracted services, so this would be whatever if we choose to do for speakers, now down to $947. And I think we have always said, because we have the resource/events committee trying to think of ways to use that, but I think that's always open for everybody. So if you guys have ideas on how speakers or events or things, I'm sure those ideas would be welcomed to be investigated by the resource committee, the resource park committee. We have some supplies and materials, so we approved to get the badges, name badges, Kara. And website domain is under that. We have and also administrative supplies. Those are all under supplies and materials. We had other charges. We had materials for the family community event, which were sensory items, which was tacked on from the last budget, last grant had to be pushed into this. And then we have fixed charges, like we had to pay FICA for the custodial, so it's $40. So that is where we stand, and that's submitted. We hope not to have to make an amendment. It's a process. It's a process. And it's a lengthy. Everybody hopes we don't have to. That's why we asked for your money, your request by December, because by January we got to put it in, and we can't merely make changes.
Yeah, so for those who may, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the different categories, and not in detail, but just give people a little bit more context of why it's important to understand where that money just moved.
There's only certain printing versus materials you can purchase versus services you can pay for. So it all falls into different, as they say, buckets when we have our meetings together. And so we have to try to move that $200 to $2,500 around into those different buckets to make sure we're covering everything. So it was trying to figure out, well, where does printing go versus poster material go versus services type thing. I forgot to say also, they did let us know that they'll give us the timesheet before the resource fair so that we have that all done. We were kind of trying to play catch up last year. And then we have historically had Chuck Flahart, and they said that he has to have his W-9 in and a quote in ahead of time that is approved, if that's so chosen by the committee.
Is that what so I heard you say like 947 left. Is that the bulk, the 900-ish?
So 947 is that the people, experts.
Okay.
So that
Experts
would
of
include Chuck
presenting or doing
Yes,
some
so
sort of.
that would include Chuck.
So it would include Chuck, and so that's really, he's usually around 400, so we're still looking at 500.
It's 500.
Thank you, 500. So we still have, what, 400 we need to spend-ish for some sort of presentation? I just want to get our minds thinking about it, if we have ideas.
So like 447.
447.
And we will want to use those funds.
And we have, the events committee has already talked about a potential presenter and idea.
But if you have
But
other
if you
ideas.
have other ideas.
No, I just wanted to make sure we
forward.
knew how much we wanted to spend, because it's always a
We
struggle.
want to plan for something later.
Yeah, that's a good
After
call
the
to
resource fair.
know what we have to work with.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly. So just again, thank you, Dr. Bingman, for helping facilitate that process. We have a recurring connect with the Jessicas around the grant process, and they help us with any changes that need to be made. And we're trying to shift some of this thinking left on how we want to potentially spend funds. We were hoping to talk about it at the retreat, but it's too late in the process, so that's why we're going to have an executive board conversation around the budget for even looking ahead what we're going to do the next grant cycle. So, all right, membership committee.
Membership committee met on January 6th, and we will meet again on next Monday. We try to meet the Monday after a meeting, but we added the extra in, so we didn't want to miss anything. So welcome, Andrea and Maeli. We are glad to have you here. A couple other things that were just kind of top of mind is we have been reviewing and revamping the application for new members that will be going out. So we will finalize that on Monday, fingers crossed. So we can get that out with communications and start advertising for membership for next year. And let me see, the other update is we are working on, we did put in some suggestions for the
Lost changes?
Yes, thank you. Because a lot of the current bylaws are revolved around what membership does. So we all kind of put in our notes and we'll all review them together. But there was a working document there, and we've been updating our SOP document so that whoever takes over chair next year will be able to pick up and kind of keep moving. If any of the other chairs want to look at our template, steal it shamelessly to make it your own, do it better, whatever. But we've started it. It's obviously a work in progress, but I will certainly turn that over to anyone who wants to reach out. You can have access to it and copy it, take it, steal it, whatever. Just a reminder for membership that if your term is up at the end of this year, we will be reaching out. I think the chairs will be reaching out by within the next couple of months, just to kind of get an idea if you plan on applying for another term, and if so, if your term is up, you will need to reapply again. Each 2-year term, you need to reapply, whether or not you've been here or not, so that we just make sure that we are balancing our committee to best represent our students that we're representing. So that's up.
Anything to share in terms of the process for the reapplication? Any changes that might be coming that people may want to be aware of, or are you still working through some of that?
Still working through some of it. We're really just trying to separate a little bit so that, when you go through it, we're going to have some general demographic information that we collect. When I say demographics, it's some just generic demographics that you pick everywhere, but also like what schools you either work at or your children attend or you have a relationship with, so that we're trying to spread out our knowledge across the county. Any experience that you or whoever's applying would be that has with it different disabilities. We're trying to have a wide range of disabilities, a wide range of schools being covered, different levels of schools, elementary school, high school, different things like that. We'll share it. We're trying to finalize it, but it'll go out and we'll have it sent out so that, both those that need to reapply and then obviously to help us spread the word with others. We have a whole plan together on how it's gonna go out, but we just need to finish the application and get it approved, and then it'll also have a section so that if you're a parent, you'll get some very specific parent questions versus if you're a teacher or a staff member, so that you're not, having to do not applicable half the time. We'll have it split off into the right places, so. Just need to finalize the words and then we'll get it up and running. Dewey looked up.
Excellent. Sounds like a lot of great work. Any questions for membership subcommittee? Okay, let's move on to events.
All right, so the events committee, we are meeting the second Wednesday of each month. So we have met a couple of times. Of course, our main focus is the resource fair. So I'll get to that last. And Tara is heading up the resource fair planning. So I'll hand it off to Tara in a second. But other than that, we talked about, and we're continuing conversation about wanting to have at least one educational presentation for families in this calendar year. So we could use some of those funds that are left over. And so we're talking about ideas for that. And we really want to make sure that it's something that parents want and need. So we'll probably be collaborating with Partners for Success to get a survey or something out to the community to know what parents want in an educational presentation. But we're kicking around the idea of something around the IEP process or dispute resolution with the IEP process, but really wanting to hone in and find out what people really want to hear about. So we'll work on that. And then we also worked on acquiring the location for the retreat, so that's good. So that'll be taken care of. And just generally speaking, we want to make sure that as we do more events each year, that we have some kind of tracking system for attendance at the events, making sure that we are getting the word out about events in the different languages that we need to get them out in, and trying to spread that out throughout the county, and also implementing an event feedback survey or a post-event, just to get post-event feedback from participants who do come to like an educational session, so we can know if we're on the right track with that. Then, like I said, a big part of what we've been talking about, though, is the resource fair. So thankfully, Tara is the lead of the resource fair. So I'm going to hand it off to Tara to update us on that.
So we have now, I would say 90% of everything documented that started happening as early as this last spring into summer. But just to walk you guys through where we are with the resource fair right now, it is still confirmed March 29th from 10 to 2, was set up the night before at Rock Creek School. The current administration at Rock Creek has been so super welcoming. They're basically giving us the school. And I have not been told no for anything I asked for. It's been amazing. We just did an additional walkthrough with members of the Transition Youth Council so they could see the space. And the Transition Youth Council will be having 4 rooms with educational sessions with panels in them, 8 different sessions ranging from everything about learning about DDA to workforce and college and everything in between. And we also have an area secured where when those individual topics are done, those presenters can travel for the next 15, 20 minutes to a half hour, hang out with people, answer more individualized questions, connect them with resources. We're also adding in the large hallway where these panels will take place, at least 1 or 2 like wayfinding people. So if I'm a new parent and I'm like, I don't know what one of these sessions to go to, or who do I need to see on the vendor floor, I can sit down with Corby and say, could you help me out? And somebody that could give that personal touch and help folks. So we're really excited with that new partnership and the new reach we'll be able to give. We'll be continuing to work with Friends this year, both in their support physically with tables and people to help us with the resource fair, as well as the work that they do financially to help us benefit the Success Program. Stacy has been working amazingly on taking all of this information we have from previous vendors and previous folks we've reached out to, confirming does their business still exist, who's the proper contact, getting rid of ones that are no longer in existence, doing an initial like, hi, we want to make sure this is accurate, are you interested in coming again this year, and collecting some updates from them so that we have a very clean list to be able to push out our invitation to. So that is out there on the resource fair folder if you guys want to take a look at it. We would welcome suggestions. If you take a look at that spreadsheet and say, oh, I don't see this organization on there, I think they'd be great to invite, just shoot an email to the CCAC Gmail and we'll add it to the list and get them on there. Stacey and I met this weekend and we're working on updating the invite in Google form that goes out to all of our vendors. Our goal is to have that invite sent out by the end of this week, January 31st, which will give them ample time to reply. We're going to request replies by the end of February, giving us like a week where we can reach out to folks we haven't heard from, so we can have a very succinct list by March 10th to allow us to do planning in advance and have things laid out really well. Through our work with the finance department with the Jessicas, sorry, he cracks me up, they're both Jessica. We've confirmed that Mr. Flahart will be able to return if he so wishes, and the events committee thought it would be great to invite him again for consistency for our families, and he is willing to go through all the proper channels and do all the proper paperwork, and he's actually in the midst of completing it now, so that is fabulous. We're also working with them, like Jen said, for the whole timesheet issue, so our custodians, there isn't a hitch in the giddy up and paperwork doesn't get lost in the system. We have a whole plan with them, and we've gone over that with both the staff and the supervisors at the school level. Had a conversation with Miss Grace and some follow-up with Grace and Issa, getting them onboarded to our committee and working on the event, and they're going to be giving us support with coordinating with organizations like COIP, Therapy Dogs, Success Program, and so on and so forth for those to be present and at our event. And then the rest is kind of logistics. We're in the final stages of designing a save the date flyer that we'll be able to use to send out to everyone, that then our partners will be able to print, push out, we'll be able to use on social media, same thing everywhere, for consistency. Sarah, who's not here tonight, which I'm kind of sad because I want to toot her horn. Sarah had some really great ideas of ways to bring in FCPS staff into our event as both volunteers and ways for our 11th month SEIAs to be involved. She's coordinated with Troy, and we're going to be doing a Sign Up Genius for those to have staff volunteering and or working that day, some of which will be able to give direct support to our students that attend in the Parks and Rec multi-purpose room that's adjacent to the vendor floor. And Parks and Rec has given us carte blanche with all of their resources in the building that day. So if you need a sensory break, we got a place for you, or you can even get on a swing if you need to. So that's very exciting. Sarah will also be working, we're meeting later this week to put all the details into the system. She's gonna be working on our Sign Up Genius for the entire event, for all of us to sign up to volunteer, and I'm really hoping everyone will find a way to help either Friday or Saturday, or both if you feel the pull. And we'll be looking at ways that we can push that out to our greater community to see if we have other folks who would like to get involved with CCAC as this being an easy way to come in and hang out with all of us. This year we'll be adding a map, where you'll have a map of where everything is in the school with a list of the activities that we have going on. Trying to think if there's anything else super exciting. Stacy is going to do recognition for the people on the vendor floor who are partnered with us this year, so they'll have a sign recognizing their partnership, which is exciting. We'll be reaching out probably to Troy, because he remembers everything, to confirm when the MSDE survey will be coming out, and we'll be finding a way to include that. We're also looking at the possibility of having a separate survey that's just from CCAC to our constituents, where they could give us feedback about what they need while they're there. And am I forgetting anything big?
No, that's a lot. That's great. A lot of great work.
I feel like there's been a lot going on, and we haven't got to really discuss it, so I wanted to give you guys as much information. And you can go look at the planning document.
Stacy wants to talk.
And all that stuff. Stacy's always good.
So I have actually cleaned spreadsheet that I've cleaned up. We have about 150 vendors, I'm gonna say vendors, organizations, resources, private practices, whatever. I've sent all of them emails and all of that, and we currently have 40 RSVPs already.
And she'll be sending the official sign-up document, because they're like,
Amazing.
so we've really got a lot going on already. Like, we're looking at,
You guys will have booths outside of Rock Creek.
yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like, we're gonna contingency plan, what are we gonna do if we fill the gym? Where are we gonna put our other folks? So it's very exciting. Spread the word. We wanna get lots of our community members there.
Yes, lots of great work. Thank you so much. Very, very exciting. Is that it? We good?
I think so. Did I miss anything? Stacy is like my extra brain.
Okay, I don't see that we have chair or co-chair from communications, and I didn't get any updates ahead of this, unless I missed anything in the email. So we'll move on to student voices. Oh, do you have an update?
I think Ashley was going to share something.
Oh, okay.
I can. So Meg, Jake, and I met last week. And then I know that Merritt had also met with you previously, so all of us haven't really had a chance to kind of come together. But what Meg, Jake, and I talked about this week is just kind of defining our purpose as the communications committee, and whether that's creating original content, whether that's being able to get the word out just about CCAC in general, through maybe the Office of Special Ed updates that we get, or PTA blurbs and websites. So it sounds like we might be able to be of help with the resource fair and pushing things out that way. But I know one thing in particular that would be helpful is just narrowing down how to get the word out to student eds. Like if we're in the Office of Special Ed newsletter, then that gets all the special ed staffing in FCPS.
So I love that you brought that up, because at the executive board conversation, we talked about an interest in the communications subcommittee, taking a look at all the different channels that we have access to. So whether it's School Messenger or Facebook or Instagram or all these different channels, what kind of content should be put out, through which channels, at what frequency, and then having some kind of proposal that you could share back with the executive board so we can understand. And also, we have Dorothea, who's not here, but she has access to print. So there's a newspaper in Woodsboro, Walkersville. Yes,
That's what I
so
forgot.
we'll be running the resource fair in that. So there's lots of different channels that we can get messaging out. It would be super helpful if you could do some brainstorming around, like, what do you think we should message and when, and to what audience, and at what frequency, and the kinds of content. And then I love that you were talking about, like, we create content versus other content that's already created. So put some thinking around what's already out there that we can just reshare. Anything budget related that's happening right now, we just need to get that out through Facebook and Instagram. Any of our meetings, all of those things that we do at CCAC, you should feel free to go ahead and publicize all of that information. But we'd love to get a proposal back on how you're looking to approach some of that. Okay, student voices.
Yes, so, like Ashley said, me or Meg met with comms and talked about, I don't want to say what we are not allowed to do communications-wise, but because I think Student Voices has a lot of crossover with comms, especially as it relates to, you know, school-specific stuff that we do with student bodies and outreach. I kind of put the subcommittee on hold because I didn't want to do anything that I wasn't allowed to do or that the committee didn't want me to do. So we did not meet this past month, but we will be meeting the next month. I'm glad we have our third student, Maeli, finally. I don't know if, and somebody has to double check me on this, I don't know if CCAC's ever had 3 student members. So fantastic, wonderful, incredible. Any other adjective you'd like to use? Very cool. But yeah, I have no updates at this time, but now that we kind of have everything squared away, I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
Sounds good. All right, so bylaws is the subcommittee that remains. So there was a subcommittee meeting where we talked through some of the proposed bylaw changes, including what we got from membership in terms of recommendations. February 10th is the executive board meeting. We're looking to share out a proposed revision ahead of that meeting for the executive board to take a look at. And this is following what is in the bylaws in order to revise the bylaws. So it does have to go to the executive board for review, and then no later than the 23rd of February, getting, and that's prior to our next public meeting, getting the recommendations in terms of what we think makes sense to change to all of you, the full membership, so you can then have some time to digest it and process it. We're also going to hold an informational session that is optional if you want to come and show up and learn about the proposed recommendations and the why behind. Many past lives, I've done a lot of bylaws writing, and it's, you know, not an easy thing, and it's hard to understand how all the pieces connect together, so we want to make sure we give you an opportunity to ask questions around what the proposed changes are, so that we don't have to spend an inordinate amount of time in a public meeting workshopping all of those changes. So we want to give you ample time to consider the changes, have an information session that is optional to you, come ask any questions, get further clarification, and then we're looking at the March public meeting to put a vote forward to address the recommended changes.
And what date would that March informational meeting be where you could have questions and conversation?
That will be the 11th. Thank you, Tara, from 7 to 9 p.m. and it will be virtual. So we'll get the invites out for that if Laura hasn't already done that. So worst case scenario, the 28th of April or May 3rd, we gave ourselves some buffer time in case we do get into some conversations around some of the proposed changes that would take us further into our calendar year. All right, so we'll move into our member voices section here. Do we have any parents that would like to share for the greater good of the committee, or anybody listening out there? Tara.
I just want to let everyone know I'm super excited. For the first time ever, my kids are old enough, and both of my middle schoolers are going to the Special Olympics polar plunge, and I'm going to on Wednesday. And Brunswick Middle had enough kids sign up that parents were fighting to go, and Special Olympics is providing us our own bus. That's how many kids are going from our tiny school, so woohoo!
That's awesome.
So, check Facebook if you want to sponsor my kid.
Insert shameless plug. Okay, any other parents?
But I'm more excited about our school than anything.
We're also plunging.
Yay.
Awesome. The other thing I was going to bring up too, and I think Laura, you might have posted about it in one of the chats, but just as a heads up, lists the new government, or the new governor's recommended fiscal year 26 budget has proposed elimination of the LIST services, low intensity support services. There's a town hall on Wednesday. I'm sure Laura will post something. I couldn't I couldn't get my whole voicemail to come through, so, but I'm sure we can put it in the chat later. There's a town hall, if anyone wants to speak to it. If you're not familiar with it, there's over 2,000, I think, families that take advantage of it a lot. It's a limited amount, $2,000 that you lottery into, that families that qualify for it can use for basically anything that insurance doesn't cover. It's supplemental and very helpful for a lot of our families. And I want to at least, and hope that some of you may also want to speak and share that you request they not eliminate that part from the Maryland budget.
There's a motion coming around that topic later in new business, so.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for teeing that up.
Good.
Any other parents?
I saw that town hall was at capacity.
Oh, is it?
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm sure we can write our letters.
Yeah.
We can write one and duplicate it and make it your own 1,000 times too if we need to.
Exactly.
I know so many families that have benefited from it, and it's just really helpful, so.
Statewide.
Anyone else? Any other parents? So the Parent Resource Center hosted something by the Reach Every Voice, which is an organization, and it was focused on non-speaking. So my daughter Marin is non-speaking. It was geared more towards autism. Marin is a CP kiddo, but there's a lot of, I just found the organization to be really interesting. They have an interesting model of how they're working with folks, either the parents to figure out, or even educators to navigate situations where somebody is not speaking as a result of autism, and lots of they do a consultation, and of course it's not a free thing, so I'm just letting people know that it is a thing, and if it is something that is a need somewhere, because I think that there's an interesting model that they're using to try to increase the engagement for folks who are non-speaking. And they also serve adults, not just kids. But so Reach Every Voice was the organization that, if anybody's interested in looking at that. All right, community members. Anyone from our community members? Amy, go ahead.
So I am a professor of elementary and special education at Hood College, and I am extremely concerned, so much so that it just made me want to share it today, in our decreasing numbers of people going into education. And for instance, I teach one of the introductory classes to the education program. It's kind of the student's first step into the program. And every semester, we have fewer and fewer students. I have 8 students in my class this semester. It barely could even run because it's so small. 2 of them are elementary special ed track certification students. This is not just a local problem, but we meet with our colleagues in other from other colleges and universities in the state, and they're seeing the same thing with just every semester the numbers getting lower and lower. And from my perspective, with the 2 students that I do have that are elementary special ed certification track, Hood does do a dual cert program, so they get certified in elementary and they get certified in special education. So that's not even guaranteeing that they're going to go into special education. They could just, and a lot of them do, just choose to do elementary. So it's a concern, and we're really worried about it. And as we're talking about staffing, co-teaching classrooms, I don't know where the people are going to come from, but I don't know what we can do about it, but it's just it's an issue.
Any other community members want to share?
Can I just add to that?
Yes, please.
Just to add on to what Dr. Kilpatrick was sharing, is that we are continuing to work on Grow Your Own, because that is probably the first group that may be interested as our paraprofessionals in becoming teachers. So we did meet with the Mount team. Hopefully Maryland will have another grant available so that we can continue to expand or grow your own. And because we do have a lot of wonderful paraprofessionals that are interested in becoming teachers, you know, our tuition reimbursement only takes you so far. So we've been able to see a lot of success with that program.
Thank you. All right, students.
Jen's got her hand up.
Sorry, Jen.
Speak. I am part of the Decoding Dyslexia Frederick County chapter. Decoding Dyslexia is a statewide grassroots, totally volunteer parent groups that support language-based learning differences and the process and support and help with, you know, trying to figure out how to get their kids the most help. So we do, in Frederick County, we always do once a month meeting. Last month we had Barbara Laborski talk about dysgraphia and the fine motor concerns that come along with dysgraphia and written expression, which we are going to try to put up on the Decoding Dyslexia Facebook page for Frederick County. You'll find the Maryland one, and every county has one. So if you're interested, we're going to try to put that one up on. And then in the future events, we're doing things like panels, like having, similar to what you guys have already put in place, and having a panel where parents can come and ask questions to a parent, a student, an educator, and kind of try to get more information about dyslexia. So just always look, if you're interested, it will be on the Dyslexia Frederick County Facebook page.
The presentation was awesome. I attended that while Jeannie was it was awesome. A lot of great resources and the immense amount of knowledge was shared. So I encourage you guys to check it out if anybody you know struggles with written expression or writing.
She's local. She's in Frederick County, Barbara.
All right, any other community members, students, any of our, go ahead, Jake.
I have things. So I know we put student voices on hold for a little bit, but personally, I've been active doing some things, the student panel with Partners for Success, but more recently, I guess, these past several weeks, I mentioned this in the Google chat a little bit, but I have been working very, very hard as part of a competition called Mr. Urbana, which is basically a talent show, and I say that with quotes because I don't have any talents. It's basically a talent show, but it's also a fundraiser for the Rock Creek School. Myself and 11 other senior boys have gone around and raised money. This is the 27th year of it, and collectively, Mr. Urbana has raised over $200,000 for the Rock Creek School, so it's a very wonderful cause. It's a great way to say thank you to our resource fair partner or to contribute to a great group of kids and their staff. I recently borrowed permanently one of the posters that our school put up for a QR code if you guys want to buy tickets. It's available to the public at Urbana High School on February 6th. I have to scan it and probably put it in the Google chat, but that will be up if you guys want to come see. I will be there. I will be doing things. Mayeli is a dancer also, so you guys can come see us do things. I'm doing a stand-up comedy routine, or trying to. But if you want to see an actual talent, come watch Mayeli dance. And yeah, that's just what I've been up to. I think that's worth sharing. If you guys have any questions about it, or Jen?
How do we donate to you?
You can donate to this beautiful piece of craftsmanship. Donation box. I also have a Venmo, if that would be preferred. Yeah, so those are the methods.
So all the details are in the CCAC chat if you're so inclined to support Jake and his talent endeavors.
Yes, and if you would like more information, just reach out to me. I'm happy to provide.
I attended several times and brought my son, and it's an amazing event and very entertaining. So.
Yes, I believe after the competition, I'm not 100% sure on it, but I think all the guys go out to the Rock Creek School and spend the day with the kids afterwards.
Awesome.
It's really a great experience all around, so if you guys want to be there and be a part of it, I would love it.
I've been there when they've visited in the past. It's so worth it, isn't it, Katie?
It's amazing. And they do a mini performance for the students, and then the Urbana students get a tour of the school and get to see what they're donating towards, so it's really cool. It's one thing.
All right,
What
awesome.
time does it take place?
It is February 6th at Urbana High School, the auditorium, from 7 to 9 p.m.
All right, thank you, Jake. Any comments from staff? Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. Are you going to see where you set your stuff ahead of time, right? Okay, thank you. Okay, so, you want to? Okay. So let's do that first. If you'd like to come up and share your public comments. Your 3 minutes, yes.
I don't need. Okay.
Melissa Medwig.
Yep. Our SAVE RVP families have been working hard for 9 months to have RVP reinstated. First, I wanted to acknowledge our appreciation of the support that CCAC has provided from back in May when this first started. That meeting was the first place most of us came to speak when RVP was first cut. For me, it was the first time I had spoken publicly about anything at all. You all graciously made the time to hear us and to support our families. You've continued to support us throughout your letters and presentation to the board. We sincerely appreciate all that your committee has done. Now we find ourselves in Dr. Dyson's budget, which we do appreciate, but there's a long way to go in the budget session. Last year, RVP became a last-minute line item cut in May. So we're going to continue to advocate for RVP. We need to promote it so that it grows and so that families who are struggling in their current situation know that it's an option. RVP has served so many children in so many differing circumstances. It's innovative and personalized, it costs less than an in-person seat, it's allowed children to downgrade their IEPs and 504s, and it's allowed children to work in a quiet space free from distractions and fear. The applications for grades 4 through 8 are open and close on February 14th, and the applications for the high school are open and close on February 7th. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your support.
And we did have 2 other pieces of public comment that were submitted via email from Kelly Nelson and Penelope Campbell. So we will make sure, if we haven't already, share those around with all of the committee members and forward those on as appropriate to others that may need to be aware. Okay, so no unfinished business, but new business. We did want to Kara's point, very good point, talk about a couple of things, and we only have 10 minutes, so we can, if we do want to extend the meeting by 10 minutes, we can certainly consider that, but we know that we're in a difficult financial political climate. We know that we need 20 million above maintenance of effort to fund and support the recommended budget put forth by Dr. Dyson by the county executive. So would like to move that CCAC issue a letter to the county executive requesting 20 million above maintenance of effort to ensure that, assuming everything moves forward through the board appropriately, the Board of Education appropriately, that we don't find ourselves having to go back and rework after we learn that the county executive is not going to fund at the level that's needed to support what's being requested. So that is my motion, and the reason for my motion, is there a second? Second. Kara is a second. Any discussion? Shall we move into a vote? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so I think we have 21 members here in favor of an advocacy letter to the county executive to fund 20 million above maintenance of effort. Thank you all. All right, so the next piece is more in line with what Kara brought up earlier, which is Governor Moore's budget. Again, difficult trade-off decisions being made, $200 million cut from DDA, which has implications for the LIS program. And for that program in Frederick County, 623 people applied through their random selection process in FY25, 602 in 24, 496 in 23, and 416 in 22. The numbers keep growing. That doesn't mean all of those people were eligible, but the need is there. So you know, there is an interest in issuing an advocacy letter to protect funds around lists specifically, and anybody would like to put a motion forward regarding that.
I'd like to put a motion forth to advocate for this funding to where it needs to go to.
Okay. It's probably a broader audience, given the implications, so it would probably be, you know, Governor Moore, our Frederick County delegation, the Board of Education, and all of the other players that are involved in this kind of decision-making process. So with that motion on the floor, is there a second? Jake is a second. Any discussion?
Can I just share that funding not only affects lists, but it will affect future services for anyone who is applying to DDA or is currently in a waiver program. It not only affects the individuals, their families, but also their staff and how they get paid. So it is really vital that anybody that has an interest in that does advocate and does write letters, and please do attend anytime you can to any of these things to have your voice be heard. I know that as the ARC of Frederick, we're doing a lot of internal advocacy with the individuals that we serve. We haven't definitely done outreach to the community to include them in that, particularly at this time, but hoping that anybody that feels that they may be affected or is involved in this community, obviously, would take the moment just to write a letter. It only really has to be a couple of sentences to share your need or how you feel it's necessary to keep these funds and increase these funds in order to provide services ongoing for people. There is so many people in need on the waiting list, and this just completely eliminates that for them, and it will possibly decrease things for others who already have services. So it's a really vital time to grow grassroots efforts. That's the only way things have ever been done for people with disabilities, has been by their families and communities fighting for them. So kind of all forget that when things seem to be in a more plethora of funding and things tend to seem like they may be moving in a good direction, but when there is a stop like this, really brings you back to the beginning of like how much you have to fight for this community. So just try to keep that in mind for yourself. There's lots of things online. You don't have to put yourself out there if you don't like talking to people, but it's very easy to send a note to your delegate, to the state, to just show your support for services.
Yes, and there is a lot of activity happening around this, and you know, we can certainly provide some templated, like a quick templated email, if that would be helpful for folks if you want to reach out individually and then add in your own personal flavor to it. We can certainly share something around that. And I was in touch with Penmar. I think they're doing a lot of organizing around this, trying to get families, businesses, and advocates together so that they can tell the true impact to list families as part of the narrative. Any other discussion around this?
We're seeing a lot of change. Like service coordination, case management. They're already, DDA is already
contracting.
Yeah. A lot of justifications on, are you sure this person really needs this? And that was before even the letter, the information came out. And now that the information's come out, it's sheer panic.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
Earlier today, I did share a link to Maryland Matters article in which advocates asked to be at the table amid talks of budget cuts to disability agency. And this was on the 24th. Laura Howell, the CEO of Maryland Association of Community Service, Andy Culp, Executive Director of the ARC of Maryland, and Matt Rice, Executive Director for the People on the Go of Maryland, testified Thursday at a Senate Budget and Taxation Committee hearing. It's dire, folks. It's really dire.
That's it. Setting to the chair of the Budget and Taxation Committee that would be another part of the landscape of where we would send the letter. All right.
All members.
One thing I've noticed is when these things are brought up in those conversations. They will have a, if it's removed, once it's removed, they'll have this, it's gonna be even more difficult for it to come back. If we fight it with everything, and it's just a suggestion, with the contacts that you have with the other CCACs, I think if we have a conversation with everyone and have some, more people coming at it at the same time with the same voice, it'll create a very strong voice instead of just us working on it and everybody else. But if we came together and then presented it, because it might be the last time it'll be presented. And I say that because I'm able to be in conversations at this moment where in my professional world that I'm seeing conversations about this, and there is, once it's off the table, you're not gonna, that's kind of it, it sounds like it. It's so hard. I'm listening to how they talk about it, and I don't know if I'm able to say how, but I can tell you that once it's off the table, that's really hard to get it back on. So I do think that, as everyone has stated, it's very serious.
Okay, are we ready to move into a vote? Okay. Any opposed to issuing the advocacy letter around lists? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's 21 yays, I believe. All right, so there's quite a few calendar observances coming up. Turner Syndrome Awareness Month, National School Counselors Week, Feeding Tube Awareness Week, Congenital Heart Defect Week, and International, can't read that, Angelman Day. Yes, okay, thank you. Just to be aware of as we move into February, and that leads us into our next meeting, which will be here, Board of Education building in the boardroom on February 24th from 6 to 8, our usual time. We will have our very own member, Corby Fowler, presenting to us on all the great work that is happening with the ARC. With that concludes our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all right, so 7:57, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone so much.